Imagine a canvas filled with painstakingly drawn characters, a perfectly constructed world, and a beautifully weaved plot. Now imagine authors holding the brush, pouring their life's passion into every stroke, every word. Believe it or not, some of the most revered authors didn't find fame until they were in their 40s, 50s, or even 60s. Take Laura Ingalls Wilder, for instance, who at the ripe age of 65 found fame with her first Little House on the Prairie book. Or Charles Bukowski, whose words were mostly rejected by publishers during his lifetime, only to gain popularity posthumously. And the list goes on. But of all these late bloomers, there's one author's journey that stands out from the rest. A journey filled with such intrigue and perseverance that, you'll have to wait and see. What's up, my amazing and curious folks? Ready to unravel another mystery together? I'm Caesar, your guide to the world of unknown facts and hidden stories. And joining us is our brilliant commentator, Sonia, who is always ready to dive deep into the details. Remember to subscribe to Curiosity Wonderland and hit that bell icon so you never miss an episode.
Hi everyone, buckle up because today's episode is a real page-turner.
Now, how many of you ever had that nagging feeling of not having achieved much as the years roll on? Maybe we look around at others, watching them create, while we seemingly just observe from the sidelines. But don't let that get you down. Many notable figures from history found fame after their 40th, 50th, or even 60th birthdays. So, if it was possible for them, why can't it be possible for us?
That's right. You're not likely to become a professional athlete or break into the pop music industry after 40 or 50. But there are other ways to leave your mark late in life. Take writing, for instance.
Absolutely. Many writers start at various stages of their lives and don't make a mark until the second half of their journey. Maybe that's because writing novels requires maturity and focus, something many of us lacked in our younger years.
That's a great point. And today we're going to talk about 10 such late bloomers in the publishing industry. These literature legends come from varied backgrounds, genres, and styles, but they all have one thing in common. They all found fame after they turned 45.
Incredible, isn't it? Let's start with Laura Ingalls Wilder. She was 65 years old in 1932 when she published the first of her 8 famous Little House on the Prairie books.
Imagine at the age of 65, when most people are retiring, she was just starting her journey to fame.
And what a journey it was. The first book, Little House in the Big Woods, about Laura's early childhood years in Wisconsin, became an instant hit. She was encouraged to continue the series, and over the next decade, she published 7 more books, almost all massive hits.
And she didn't stop until she was 76. Her contributions to children's literature will always be remembered.
Talk about perseverance and patience. Stay tuned, folks. We've got more inspiring stories to share. Continuing with our list of writers who found fame after 45, let's delve into the story of Charles Bukowski. In 1971, at the age of 51, he published his novel Post Office through the local independent printing press, Black Sparrow.
It's incredible. The novel was based on Bukowski's 11 very difficult and darkly humorous years working for the U.S. Postal Service in Los Angeles. The book was an immediate success. It sold nearly 100,000 copies in the United States alone, thanks to major critical acclaim for its raw nature and no-punches-pulled writing.
And abroad it sold another 500,000 copies. This cemented Bukowski as an urban writing wonder. However, Bukowski's path to success is quite unique. He finally found literary success after 50, but his lasting legacy was truly cemented after his death.
That's so true. Bukowski wrote many novels and poems in his lifetime, but most were rejected by publishers. However, the Black Sparrow Press didn't give up on him. By the time Bukowski died in the year of 1994, most of his work had been published by that independent press and others.
In an ironic twist of fate, Bukowski is now more popular 3 decades after his death than he was during his lifetime. His fame truly began with the late-in-life publication of a novel about working for the government, delivering mail in Tinseltown.
Talk about persistence and the value of believing in your work. Now, moving on to another late bloomer, Richard Adams was already 52 years old before he published his first ever novel, Watership Down.
And just like that, a classic was born. Watership Down is about a group of rabbits who go out in search of a new home after their original warren was destroyed. It has become a staple of children's literature.
Again, showing us that it's never too late to embark on a new adventure, or to create one for that matter.
Our next late bloomer is none other than the famed British author Richard Adams, who published his first ever novel, Watership Down, well after his 52nd birthday.
A book that managed to terrify and captivate children in equal measure, wasn't it?
Indeed it was. It's a notably creepy book, aimed to spook the kids who read it. Adams perfected the story by telling it to his daughters during a long car journey before he finally wrote it down.
And his daughters loved it enough to encourage him to publish it, right?
Exactly. And the rest, as they say, is history. It quickly became a bestseller with tens of millions of copies purchased worldwide. It was even made into a movie that debuted in 1978.
And that movie, just like the book, had some pretty graphic scenes of impending doom for the poor rabbits, didn't it?
Yes, it certainly did. It enthralled and terrified children who went to the theaters. Adams lived until the ripe old age of 96, a long time after his very late rise to fame. But still, it took more than 5 decades before he broke through.
And speaking of breaking through, Tolkien was another one who found fame later in life, wasn't he?
That's right. It may be hard to believe, considering the legacy he left behind, but Tolkien stumbled through obscurity well into his 40s. He wrote and worked for several decades without a major public breakthrough.
But then at the age of 45, he made it big?
Absolutely. In 1937, he found his breakthrough with the publication of The Hobbit, setting the course for an illustrious career in the world of fantasy literature. Picking up where we left off, Tolkien's The Hobbit was published in 1937 and was very well received. But Tolkien had not only time on his side, he also had patience. He painstakingly worked out his storylines in The Lord of the Rings for nearly 2 more full decades, only publishing them in 1954 and 1955.
It seems he truly embodied the phrase, "Good things come to those who wait."
Absolutely. And despite his late start, he was never afraid of diving deep into the process and letting it go on for as long as it needed to perfect a story, no matter his age.
Speaking of writers who found their stride later in life, let's talk about Raymond Chandler.
After serving in World War I, Chandler returned home to the United States and settled in Los Angeles. He tried his hand at writing poetry, but nobody wanted to buy what he was selling. So he started working as an accountant for a company called Dabney Oil Syndicate, and by the mid-1920s, he was earning more than $6,000 per month. A massive sum for those times.
So he was successful in another field before turning to writing?
Yes, and he found respect and admiration in his executive gig. However, his life took a turn when he began drinking heavily and neglecting his marriage, which led to him being fired from Dabney at the age of 44, right in the middle of the Great Depression.
That must have been a challenging time.
Indeed. Shocked and embarrassed by his dismissal, he got his behavior under control and decided to turn his attention full-time to writing. He began writing crime stories and immediately found a buyer. He sold a story called Blackmailers Don't Shoot to the publishers of Black Mask magazine for $180. But despite this initial success, Chandler had to grind out story after story in near anonymity for years. Moving on, Chandler wrote his crime novel The Big Sleep when he was 51 years old. Published in 1939, it became a huge success and kick-started his late-in-life career as a crime and police detective novelist.
This story reminds me of an old friend from high school. Everyone knew him as the class clown, always joking around and never taking anything seriously. But years later, he surprised us all by publishing a critically acclaimed mystery novel. Just goes to show, it's never too late to surprise people.
That's a great story. And speaking of late bloomers, let's talk about Frank McCourt.
Ah, yes, the author of the memoir Angela's Ashes.
Exactly. Born in 1930, Frank McCourt lived through a series of hard labor jobs before he turned to teaching. He graduated from New York University in 1957 as a 27-year-old undergraduate and began teaching English at Stuyvesant High School.
Which is quite a respectable position. But then he took another turn, didn't he?
He certainly did. At the age of 66, he published his memoir, Angela's Ashes. It details his impoverished and brutal childhood in both Brooklyn, New York, and Limerick, Ireland. It was an instant bestseller and earned him the Pulitzer Prize for biography or autobiography in 1997.
And then there's Mary Wesley, the British author who got a very, very late start in life. She was already 70 years old when she published her first novel in 1983.
Appropriately titled Jumping the Queue, that novel wasn't the most popular of her works, but it launched a succession of rapid-fire follow-ups that cemented her legacy. Over the next 9 years, Wesley released one book annually, including popular novels like The Chamomile Lawn and A Dubious Legacy. Between her 70th and 80th birthdays, Wesley wrote a series of works that earned her a name and a fortune. She was even appointed CBE in 1995, an unthinkable honor for most who get their start in their careers at 70 years old.
So it's never too late to make your mark, right?
Absolutely, Wesley's evidence of that. Her novels were funny, original, and well-plotted. She really used those 70 years to work it all out.
And what about Bram Stoker?
Bram Stoker was 50 years old when his landmark novel Dracula was published in 1897. Up until then, he'd been working as the personal assistant for actor Sir Henry Irving and as the business manager of the Lyceum Theatre in London's West End.
So he had a pretty successful career before becoming a writer.
Yes, but it was his novel Dracula that really cemented his legacy. Despite initial doubts about the public receiving such a spooky tale, Dracula became a hit almost immediately.
And it's still widely read today, isn't it?
Indeed, it continues to be read by millions worldwide and has been adapted into countless plays, movies, and other novels. The cultural effect of Dracula on storytelling, and specifically Gothic horror, is immense.
That's truly impressive. And who is Anna Sewell?
Anna Sewell was an English novelist known for her groundbreaking 1877 novel, Black Beauty. But more on her in the next episode. Now, let's talk about Anna Sewell, the author of the beloved novel, Black Beauty. Sewell wrote it when she was 57 years old, and quite literally on her deathbed.
That's astounding. What prompted her to write it?
Sewell had become very concerned with the treatment of animals she witnessed in England during the 19th century, so she resolved to write about it.
But how did she manage to write it while being so ill?
Well, she was so physically weak that she couldn't write very well on her own, so she enlisted the help of her mother. Anna would dictate the novel to her mother, who would then transcribe it onto paper.
And it worked?
Amazingly, yes. Black Beauty was published in 1877 and quickly became a success. Unfortunately, Sewell wasn't around for long to enjoy it. Her health had greatly deteriorated during the writing process, and she died in April 1878 at just 58 years old.
That's a bittersweet story, but I'm glad she got to see some of the impact Black Beauty had.
Absolutely. And now let's discuss Henry Roth, who occupies a unique spot in our list. His novel, Call It Sleep, is a rough biography of his own life, growing up in a heavily Jewish ghetto on the Lower East Side of New York City in the early 20th century. He published the book in 1934, a few years before his 30th birthday. But his story doesn't end there. We'll dive deeper into that in the next episode. So back to Henry Roth. After publishing Call It Sleep in 1934, both the book and Roth himself faded into obscurity. Though he continued to write, he did not publish any more works, and for decades, he remained unheard of.
That's quite a turn of events. So how did he end up on our list?
In the 1960s, literary critics rediscovered Call It Sleep and decided to re-review it. The turning point came in 1964, when the book was given a glowing review on the front page of the New York Times Book Review. This was after Roth had turned 58 years old, and the book had been out of print for nearly 3 decades.
And people started reading it again?
Exactly. Publishers rushed to reacquire the rights, and by the end of that year, the paperback edition had sold more than 1 million copies. In 2005, Time magazine listed Call It Sleep as among one of the 100 best English-language novels written in the last 100 years.
What a phenomenal comeback.
It truly was. Roth, who died in 1995, is proof that it's never too late to shine, even in the most unlikely circumstances. His story, like all the others we've shared, is a testament to the power of patience, perseverance, and the unyielding pursuit of one's passions. And there you have it, folks. We've walked you through the lives of 10 world-famous writers who didn't find fame until after the age of 45. From the prairies of Ingalls Wilder to the dark passions of Bram Stoker, from the gritty realism of Charles Bukowski to the poignant memoir of Frank McCourt, all these authors prove that it's never too late to achieve your dreams.
That's right. Each of these authors discovered their true calling and remarkably influential voices later in life. They're a testament to the power of perseverance, patience, and passion. It just goes to show you, it's not about when you start, but what you deliver when you do.
So, what's stopping you from writing your own masterpiece?
Indeed, we hope their stories inspire you to keep pursuing your passions, no matter your age or circumstances. If you enjoyed this episode of Curiosity Wonderland, please blast that like button, drop us a comment, and share this episode with your friends.
Your support means the world to us. We're always here to unleash that daily dose of curiosity for you.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep those pens rolling and minds soaring. Goodbye.
Today's insights were gathered from an article titled 10 World-Famous Writers Who First Found Fame After 45, written by Selma Angelo on Listverse, published on March 5th, 2024. You can find the full URL in the video description if you'd like to explore more about the subject. All right, now I'm off.